Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, your guide to motorsports sponsorship. Here's your host, Josh Weesey.
Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by Four Wheel Parts. Today we've got three-peat guest Tiffany Stone returning to the show. She is involved in all types of motorsports, and recently, like me, she's hopped headfirst into the Jeep world. And we get to talk about that a little bit more in this show. In the past, we've actually spent a lot of time with her talking about how to prepare for podium speeches, which was phenomenal. This time, we talk a little bit more about, brand building at a higher level. But first, I have a quick message about Four Wheel Parts. So right now, in May of 2019, when we're releasing this show, they are focused on getting your ride dialed for summer. And there's a ton of opportunities to do that, tons of good options out there. I'm just going to go through a few of them right now, but I will encourage you to go check out their website. You can go through this link here, bit.ly, so bit.ly/2UJBLSL, or you can go to fourwheelparts.com if you don't want to go through that whole link thing. But you can save right now up to $250 on the purchase of a set of 4 Pro Comp tires. So Pro Comp is a 4 Wheel Parts brand, good stuff there. You can do $100 on the purchase of 4 BF Goodrich tires, and if anybody's listened to the show before, they know I'm a pretty big fan of BF Goodrich tires, and we've actually had Peter Calhoun on the show as well, so I support that group 100%. And you can get buy 3, get 1 free on Pro Comp wheels, which is a 4 Wheel Parts brand. And there's tons of other things here too. $500 on select suspension systems, 10% on ReadyLift, 10% on Smittybilt products, which is a 4 Wheel Parts brand, and then 30% on LRG wheels. So lots of good deals. If you're like me and you're looking at the price tag of some of these things, once you start adding them all up, you do always have an option to get 6 months interest-free financing with the Synchrony Car Care card. So either way, if you got questions about that, let me know or check out fourwheelparts.com. All right, now this podcast here exists to help you and help, honestly, myself better understand the motorsports industry and then be able to unleash value on it. We want to make sure that you're prepared for conversations with sponsors that otherwise you would have no way to understand or prep for. So that's what this show is all about. If this is the first time you've heard it before, welcome. I would encourage you to head over to iTunes and leave a rating or review, though, or subscribe, because that's the best way to ensure that you don't miss any of our upcoming guests. This show here is, powered by a series of partners as well, and I'm just going to go through those. I mean, we talked about 4 Wheel Parts a minute ago. They help make this show possible, but it would not be feasible without the support of a couple of amazing companies here. AMSOIL, they provide amazing lubrication products, and they are a company that runs on freedom. You can find out more at amsoil.com/rider. SolderWeld, they produce game-changing metal bonding technology, and they're ready to rescue your race. TopThePodium.com, they're experts in motorsports sponsorship and website creation. Bold Racing, they're a family race team and GSP XTV axle specialists. And then Crash Act Industries, they provide human protection and extreme racing products. I also want to shout out some of our other partners, including MBRP, HMK USA, Sudboy Traction, GSP XTV, Diode Dynamics, and High Octane Coffee. Now it's actually time to get into the show, but first we've got this cool little feature that we've been doing with Joe Sylvester of High Octane Coffee. It is the High Octane Coffee Marketing Tune-Up, and this segment is going to feature Joe Sylvester, and he's going to give you a little bit of a tidbit of sponsorship advice. He can be reached at JoeySylvester8 on Instagram, and you can also find out more at High Octane Coffee. But let's get in.
What's up, everybody? Joe Sylvester here with your High Octane Coffee Marketing Tune-Up of the Day. Today I want to talk about a little bit of homework. Doing your homework on a company before you even think about approaching them for a sponsorship. That's a big, big thing. You need to understand the company and a little bit about what they're all about and what their marketing strategies and tactics are before you even approach them. Make sure that they align with what you're doing and make sure that you're going to be able to bring something to the table for them. Check up on their social media. Look at maybe who else they're sponsoring. See how you fit into the picture. And absolutely use their product. Even if you just try it for the first time, make sure it's something that you believe in, something that you feel confident in endorsing. So definitely, before approaching a company, do your homework, research that company, and learn as much as you possibly can about them so you can have an intelligent conversation with them when you finally do reach that marketing executive to talk to them about sponsoring your race program.
Today I'm joined by a three-peat guest. This is Tiffany Stone. She is back. She was last on episode 69 with Jared Heshka of MBRP. Right before that, episode 57. That was the first time you were on. So if you want to go back and get like the history of Tiffany, go way back there. But there's been a lot that's changed, Tiffany. So first off, fill in the gaps in intro, and then we'll catch up.
All right, so my name's Tiffany Stone. You probably have either seen me out on the West Coast with some desert racing or some short course racing, or if you're into Jeeps, I'm doing some of that now. And then I just started out something new called ARA, so I'm in American Rally and getting all that. So if you're in motorsports, we've either talked, you've seen me, or I probably even interviewed you, so you never know.
And you have been spending a lot of time on the Down and Dirty radio show recently, right?
Yes. So I am Jim Beaver's new co-host on that. Mm-hmm. So Jim and I check in every single week and kind of just get the lowdown on what's happening, what events both him and I are going to be at, what he's doing, and then kind of what I'm doing. And we just kind of break up the normal interview questions with kind of like a weekly check-in with him and I just to see what's going on.
Oh, that's perfect. So he's got a couple of versions of shows now. You know, he's got Project Action, he's got the Down and Dirty radio show, and then he's got the off-road edition, right, of the Down and Dirty show. Which one do you spend time on? It's the off-road edition or the other one, or both?
Primarily the Down and Dirty show right now, but with what's happening, he's trying to get that one rolling. And once that one gets rolling with the off-road, I'll probably jump in on some of those episodes. But primarily the Down and Dirty, just to establish kind of a rapport since I'm there every single week. No,
that's perfect. That's good. And for people who don't know, Jim's been on this show a number of times. Was it 3 or 4 now? I think it's 3 times he's been on the show. He's been a big supporter of this show, and he's allowed me to go on his show once before. But also, you know, Four Wheel Parts is very much involved with, you know, Jim's shows too. So it's nice to kind of see some connections there too.
No, it's awesome to see everything come together. And, you know, when certain people work together in the off-road industry, it's really nice because it's like, hey, you know, we're supporting you, you support us. And it's kind of like a huge family community type deal, especially in the broadcast media world as well.
Definitely. Well, you know what? We've already kind of started getting into catching up, but I feel like there's a lot more to talk about. I mean, honestly, episode 69, you were on that one last. When this one releases, I'm going to be at like 157 or something. I don't know what the number. I think that's what the number is going to be. But either way, a lot has changed. You know, let's go through all of it. Like, I want to know all the stuff that's happened to you, your current adventures, the things you're excited about right now. I don't know, where the heck do we start at?
Well, I guess since the last time we really chatted, I got an opportunity to get a brand new JL. So I got a brand new 18 JL, the bright red one. I was asked to go on Trail to SEMA. So Trail to SEMA was awesome. It is a badass adventure. And, you know, as much as I've been in the motorsports and off-road, I've never really been wheeling, especially in a Jeep. So I built my Jeep up. I threw some 35-inch BF Goodriches on there, some Vision wheels, worked together with AMSOIL, Rancho shocks, and then Dynamax plus Crawltech, Warns. Like, everybody just outfitted this Jeep for me. I drove out west, met everybody from Trail to SEMA in Grand Junction, Colorado, and we proceeded to do 7 trails in 7 days in 4 different locations. And so it was really cool because I kind of got like a crash course on wheeling, and I got to wheel with some of the best people. So, you know, Ian Johnson was out there helping me. He pretty much led me through the gatekeeper into Pritchett Canyon, which, if you don't know, Pritchett Canyon is the hardest trail in Moab. Nice. I mean, of course you got to know that, but if anybody else doesn't know that, you know that it's difficult. And then, you know, the busted knuckle guys and then bleeping Jeep guys were out there. So when I said I got a crash course from some of the best people in the crawling Jeeping community, off-road, you know, they helped me, and it was just awesome. And I'm not going to lie, there were some moments when I was in Pritchett Canyon, when I was like, I think I kind of want to turn around.
Yeah,
and like,
I'm done.
I sat there. Yeah, well, because that was my second day wheeling ever.
Yeah.
Ever. And to do Pritchett Canyon, second day wheeling
That's
ever in this brand new JL, it's got lockers on there, it's got everything, but you're still nervous.
Oh, yeah.
So there's points where I just sat, and I'm not going to lie, and I don't even know if I've even told Jim this or anybody else, but I was sitting at the beginning of Chewy Hill, and I sat there, and I went back to my Jeep, and I almost started crying, like, what did I just get myself into?
Right. It's, like, I've not even been... Okay, so a lot of people know this already, but you might not know this. I also recently got into the Jeep community. I had like a 14-year break. I used to have an XJ back in high school, and at that point I wasn't really doing wheeling or anything like that, but it was just a cool thing, and I like to drive it around all over the place. But just recently I got into Jeep, and I right now I have a 2019 JL. So it's brand new. Like, it's a Rubicon. It's only has 1,000 miles on it or something. I've only had it for about a month. And I'm just now starting to do little tweaks. And yeah, so I paid attention to you when you got yours. Like, ooh, that's cool. Like, I actually wanted a red one, and I ended up with a stingray color, which is, once I saw the color, it caught my attention. I was like, I gotta have that now. But I wish I could have a red one and a stingray one. That would be perfect.
No, that's awesome. See, that's the thing too. It was just once you start seeing it, and then you see all the capabilities, because like the guys they're like, Tiffany, you are spoiled. They're like, you have remote start, heated seats, heated steering wheel. My lockers, I just flip up, flip down. My sway bar, click the button. It tells me what my pitch and roll is, like how off camber I am. And so it's like, they're like, seriously, you are spoiled, which I am, but it's just, it's just, you start doing some more things. And like now for the summer, I'm going to start adding some rock lights on there. I'm going to start adding some new rock rails, going to bigger tires, going to bigger axles, maybe even different things. And, that I didn't even think that I wanted to do until you start really doing it. And then you want to do bigger, crazier things. You're like, okay, well, baby 35s are not going to make it. That's the difference. Like, I was on 35 for that entire trip.
Yeah.
And that just shows how capable the Rubicon is, because it crushed everything. And I'm not kidding you. People are going to be amazed by this, but I drove it from Detroit to all the trails and finished in SEMA in Las Vegas, and then drove it all the way back with literally a little scratch on the back rear fender, because I couldn't, obviously, if you're wheeling enough, it's hard to see the back rear passenger sometimes tire. And that's the only scratch.
Wow.
So that also shows you, one, little dirt off my shoulders that I'm a badass wheeler, that I didn't mess anything up, but two, like, just how nice those vehicles are.
That's pretty cool. And I kind of started this, and I got so into like talking about my Jeep that I forgot to even say it. It's so stressful, honestly, when you first start getting into wheeling. I haven't even done anything like hardcore crazy yet, but I got used to being in a UTV where you're like, oh, I don't care about bumps or anything, and there's no fenders, and there's some limitations there too, right? You can't go on the road in Michigan, at least, which you know that, but once you get out in the Jeep, you're like, holy cow, this thing can really do a lot, and it's super comfortable and nice in the meantime, which is so, like, the hardcore Jeepers are crying right now, because they're like, Jeeps can't be comfortable. You know what I mean? But like, the new JLs are super nice. My wife drove mine, was it yesterday or the day before, and she's like, oh my goodness, like, I really like this thing. And she's taking pictures next to it and stuff. I was like, okay, let's take it easy now. Like, that's mine. You can look at it and drive it every now and then, but no, they're just they're really comfortable now. They did such a good job with that new model.
No, and I know the craziest thing we're talking about, all like the little creature comforts and like true wheelers and like, guys in buggies and stuff, and even UTVs, they don't have all those amenities. They don't have heated seats, and the best part about it is when the guys, Casey Curry and Robbie Gordon took out the Gladiator for King of the Hammers and stuff like that. And it was freezing. I was there all 10 days. it was freezing that week. It snowed, and I was so amazed that I was in Southern California and it snowed. But they had the heated seats on and the heated steering wheel driving through that when everybody else didn't have those things. So it's like, it's not things you think of, but it was just so cool. And the experience was so cool to be able to see me grow. And the whole entire show is on YouTube. So you just have to go to Power Stop Brakes YouTube. And then I'm going to start posting them actually on my website soon. But you see me in the beginning, how nervous and scared I was. And then you just see throughout each single day, because this was just every single day. We did a trail, drove somewhere, did a trail, drove somewhere. And you can see the progression of how I grew and how I just got more confident. And then it also goes to show you that if anybody, no matter male, female, whatever, if you want to go out there and do that, as soon as you get behind the wheel and buckle up, you're a driver and you're wheeling. It doesn't matter. It all comes with just being confident with yourself. And you see that through the progression of the show. And I thought that was awesome.
Oh, definitely. No, it's good stuff. And it's interesting watching people go through that, right? So I'm glad you're able to document it, especially for first-time wheelers or people who are, just not sure what to do next. Because there's a lot of vehicles out there that people don't know what they're capable of. There's a lot of people who got Ford Raptors, right, and they're mall crawlers, and like they get out into some sand dunes for once, and like, holy cow, I can do full bore, out in the middle of the dunes, and it doesn't matter. Or like these new Chevy ZR2s, those things are incredible. You can just take them right off the lot and just pound on them. I watched a show. It was, I think Land Rover might have put it on, or Range Rover. I don't know which one it was, but either way, really nice vehicles that it took these people like right off of the street. 'Cause those like Land Rovers, Range Rovers, very, very infrequently now are you seeing newer versions of those off-road, and they're taking these guys out to Moab and just saying like, why don't you just climb that rock there? And they're like, what? And then they do it, and the people are just freaking out. But these vehicles are very capable, much more so than you would think, especially if you're just using it as a daily driver.
No, and you're exactly right. And the one thing that I don't think that real like new wheelers don't really understand, I kind of got it and understood it just because of off-road racing and stuff like that. But tires are a big deal when it comes to rock crawling. Like, you want to make sure that you get a good tire, one that will stick a little bit, one that can heat up if you are on those rocks. And you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes you're just spinning those tires, but if you slowly spin, after a while they'll heat up and they'll start to grab. And that's what I loved about the KM3 so much, is that they grabbed really well, especially for being such a new driver.
No, that's awesome. That's actually what I got my eyes on. I got my eyes on a lot of stuff. Just like you're saying, this is what when I bought my Jeep, I was like, I told my wife, look, I'm just going to get the Rubicon. That way I don't have to do anything to it. Just drive it, and I can still do everything I want to do off-road. And then that was like the next day, my wife said, what are you doing there? I bought a bumper because I got to have a winch, I got to have a winch. So I got a bumper and I got a winch. She's like, oh, okay. So the whole stock thing, I was like, this is still stock. I mean, the suspension stock. And then now, like, I actually did it. I was on my live show and I pulled up my shopping cart. I don't think you could see it on the live show, but I got a ton of stuff at the 4-Wheel Parts website in my shopping cart, like, ooh, and that. And I'm like, ooh, okay, maybe not ready financially for that move, but we're going to put it on the wish list. So there's just so many things that you can do, and it just starts adding up, and then, yeah, it's all good though.
Well, no, I'm honestly, I'm kind of the same way, because I got my Jeep in June last year, and I had to be out in Colorado in mid-October. So I really didn't have that many months. So I did wheels, I did tires, I did suspension, I did lift, I did exhaust, I did bumpers, I did light, I did winch, I did a fridge freezer, I did a trail up. Like, yeah. I did everything that you could possibly do in so much. And then so I'm sitting at it, I'm like, I can't believe I got all of this done in 4 months.
Right.
And then, well, I must say a big shout out to the guys at Unlimited Off-Road in Fenton, Michigan, because between Adam Shoemaker and Pete, between those two guys, they literally did everything, and they helped me, and Michael too from Crawl Tech. Like, those three guys and myself, we did so much together to put everything on there, and it was just awesome because I don't think without, the shop, I would have been able to do it all by myself because I'm still learning.
Mm-hmm.
But I am with you because now I just got my new rigid rock light.
Mm.
So it's kind of like, it's like, what do you do next? And I'm like, well, I like wheeling at night. I should get some rock lights. So I was like, some red ones would be nice. So it's like you make it kind of disco-y and then you don't. And it's like there's a fine line of making it look really clean without going overboard.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, definitely. And actually, while you're talking, you mentioned Unlimited Off-Road. Is that Unlimited Off-Road centers in Fenton, Michigan?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Perfect. I just looked them up because I don't know if everybody knows this or not, but I'm from Michigan too. And Tiffany, you were originally from Michigan, right? And you're still here? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So we're Michiganders. So we gotta stick with the Michigan company. So I was not following them, but I am now. So I'll pay attention to that. But I was actually scrolling through. I was imagining at some point here I'm gonna see pictures of your Jeep up on a lift or something. But yeah. Have you heard of Motor City Aftermarket?
I have, but I haven't been in contact. So maybe we'll switch some contacts here.
Yeah.
And go from there. But yeah, I would love to. And I was going to mention, since we are Michiganders, we should make a trip when it gets a little bit warmer to the Silver Lake Sand Dunes this year and just kind of go see what's going on.
Are you going to Jeep Invasion? May 31st?
Do you know how many people keep asking me about that? I want to, but I'm going to be in Oregon for the ARA race.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, I am a quick 2-hour drive from Silver Lake. So anytime, like I can literally just hop in and go. Well, maybe not anytime. That's a very, very strong statement there. But we can definitely do that and make a trip out of it. Well, hey, speaking of making a trip out of it, no, that's not a good transition. I was trying to transition into the next part of the show because honestly, you've already named a lot of people that you're working with right now, but let's just kind of summarize this thing again. Who are some of your current partners, your current sponsors, people that you're spending a lot of time with?
So most of the time I am spending a lot with AMSOIL, Vision Wheel, BF Goodrich, Rigid Industries, which is a great lighting company. I have somebody new that's coming on. I didn't also tell you this. So Kicker is coming on board. So when we're at Silver Lake Sand Dunes, I will have some prime music for us to do. And they have some really cool marine stuff and UTV stuff too. But that's what kind of interested me in it because they have the marine gear that I could put also in my Jeep. So if we are at Silver Lake Sand Dunes or anything like that and go through the puddles, I don't have to worry about my sound system at all.
Right.
So I'm really, really excited to see and get that stuff into there. And then, of course, still working with Rugged Radios, Pro Eagle, and SSI decals and Crawl Tech. And man, it's like I'm naming off all my entire
your whole vehicle.
entire Jeep. Yeah, my whole vehicle. But that's the thing is when you're working with all these people, I'm like, man, ooh, I like this. Ooh, I like that. And then you just start building. And then that's when your grocery cart, your shopping cart gets full.
Exactly. Do you work with Todd Robinson over at Vision Wheel?
Oh my goodness. I'm not even going to kid you on this. I owe a ton of this whole Jeep experience to Todd Robinson because Todd was like, yeah, Tiffany, we'll get you some Vision Wheels. Awesome. And I know the guys at BF Goodrich, so I'll get some wheels and we'll do all that. And I know Chris Miller at Trail to SEMA. Let me see if we can get you on there because we're a sponsor for that. And so this is how it all snowballed. So honestly, a big, big shout out to Todd Robinson at Vision Wheels because if it wasn't for him, none of this would keep snowballing,
Yeah. So Todd was on this show before. I actually met him out at Vegas to Reno last year. We actually met at Denny's. It was kind of crazy. The whole Vision crew was there, and I was like, hey, guys, do you mind if I sit down with you? And they're like, yeah, sure. Come on in, And then Todd, after that, I was doing some recording there, and he's like, yeah, I'll come to your show. What do you want to talk about? So I want to talk about motorsport sponsorship. He's like, oh, that's kind of what I do. So let's chat. So he actually, I can't remember what episode that was now, 102 maybe, 101. But either way, he was on. It was a good time.
It's awesome. Oh, Todd's also a great person, and he's just really down to earth, and he's willing to help, which I enjoy. And when you work so closely with these sponsors, because I've known Todd since the Torque days, you know, it's kind of cool because these people become your friends more than sponsors.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, I mean, I'm doing it because it's comfortable and it's fun, but also to prove a point and talking about all these different connections, because you can see there's similarities, right? You know, I met Todd Robinson at some random way in an event. You know, you've met him, you've maintained relationships, I've maintained a relationship. We can share that, like, and it helps us connect a little bit more. And like, I'm asking questions about, oh, do you work with such and such here? Or, hey, do you know that person? Have you heard of this company? Right? We just talked about Motor City Aftermarket. So, you know, I'll share the contact information for the folks over there, and that's a new relationship, new connection. So I really want people to pay attention when they're listening to these shows of those types of different intricacies and those connections and that networking. One, it's fun, and two, you know, it does end up leading to opportunities in the future.
No, exactly. And the thing is I'm a big advocate on why wouldn't I share connections? You know, there's enough things going on. There's enough work. There's enough of this for everybody, because once you start becoming like that, then it just becomes so small, and it feels like you're working against everybody else. Well, instead you could be working with everybody else. And that's what I'm a big advocate on, like, you know, just helping each other, working together, because if you're known as that person who helps people, then people gravitate towards that. People want to work with you. You know, people are like, man, you know, she's awesome. She's professional. She does all these great things. She's willing to help you. We want to be behind that. Nobody wants to work with somebody who, you know, excuse the way I say this, but who's an asshole. Like, who wants to work with somebody like that? So just always be happy and positive and willing to help people, because there's enough work in this world for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. You know, one example is with Jim Beaver, going back to him for a minute. He helps me in my show. He's done it a number of times. One, he's been on the show, and he was the first person on my show that really started getting me connected with a lot of other people. So he was on episode 4. So very early on, and he started connecting me with more and more people. And, you know, he connected me with Amy Hood, who was on that show quite a bit in the past. And honestly, when I released her episode, I saw a pretty big uptick in my, you know, in my initial followers and initial listeners. But it goes back to Jim, and he's helped me ever since. And technically, I mean, not really, because his show is much bigger than mine, and like we don't actually compete, but technically we compete against one another for some of the same listeners. So like, we're both on automotive podcasts for iTunes. So he could have said very early on, like, no, I'm not going to help you. Like, you are, you know, a potential competitor. Why would I help you? But that's not at all been the case, and I don't take it that way either. But like, he could have said that, right? And, you know, my show, he probably could have crushed my show early on, right? If he wanted to, but he doesn't do that, and that's the exact opposite of what he's done.
Exactly, and that just goes to show you how good of a guy Jim is as well. Like, I met Jim a few times before he had me on his show, and then him and I just started connecting with work because we were in the same areas, and we started doing Lucas Oil more together. And then once you start working together for a race series or whatnot, then you start conversing a little bit more, you know, while you're at work, and realize, hey, you know, maybe you should come on the show. And then Jim offered to have me be a, you know, co-host with him for every single week. And then you just become more and more friends. And like, now Jim is kind of a confidant in the motorsports world, because sometimes you need those people in this industry that you can be able to talk to and that you can trust and be like, hey, you know, I got some things going on. Can I talk to you? Can I pick your brain? What do you think about this? Because, you know, you need to bounce ideas off somebody who's in the industry and who gets it. So you need to be able to find that one person you can call a confidant, or a few, or however you want to do it, but that's in the industry, that gets it and is kind of relatable because they know what you're going through.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that was a good intro, background, catch-up session, but I need to take a minute right now to thank the sponsors for this podcast, and then we'll hop back in for Heat 2. Let's talk about AMSOIL. Maybe you've seen them at Sturgis or the AMSOIL Championship Snowcross Series, maybe your local track. Maybe you heard about them on this show. They are all over the power sports world, and here is why they get it. They're a bunch of gearheads just like you and I. They're riders, they're racers, just like us. They're also chemists and engineers, which means they're good at making synthetic oil. That's what we want them to be good at. Their time at the track and on the streets, it gives them that first-hand knowledge of how tough equipment is on oil. Extreme heat, increased stress, high RPM riding, it all works against you and your ride to basically get you sidelined. But no worry, AMSOIL handcrafts synthetic lubricants that fight wear and resist extreme heat so that you can get the most power and best performance out of whatever it is that you ride. Visit amsoil.com/rider for more details and check out their full line of products for anything that you ride. Family race team. Those are the first words that come to mind when I think of Bold Racing. And the next one is actually axles. Bold Racing is a premier distributor of GSP XTV axles, and if that wasn't cool enough, they just came out with an entirely new axle called the Revolution axle. It is a hollow tube axle. It's really cool. If you head over to their website, gspxtv.com, or you can find out more at boldracingltd.com, you can find out how this new axle technology works. So they are saying to view this as a fuse for your drivetrain. So the hollow tube CV axle twist technology actually increases the strength and reliability of the axle, and it also reduces stress on the drivetrain. Plus, honestly, it's super cool looking, and if people know me, they know that I really like cool looking stuff. So they come in this really cool gold color. Check it out. It's absolutely revolutionary. Safety is our overriding priority. I hear it all the time, but I have to ask myself, is it though? Is that the first thing we think of? Is that the first thing you think of? Over the past couple of years, we've seen the performance of production UTVs increase, somewhere around 350%. That means these machines give us a lot more opportunity to have fun and win races, but it also, unfortunately, gives us new opportunities to crash. And that's why we have partnered with Crash Addict Industries. The owner, Travis Pointer, became very accustomed to crashing early in his career. He saw it as inevitable, and he set out to make the process safer. With a passion for racing, welding, and engineering, Crash Addict Industries now produces full cage and other protection systems intentionally designed to protect you during an accident on the track. They also offer a line of human protection products through their vendors. Do this for me at this point. If you're racing with a stock cage right now, please go check out crashaddict.com and at least just see what they have to offer. Even if you choose to go with a different company, please make safety your overriding priority. 2 questions I get continuously about this show and about sponsorship is, do I need my own website and do I need a resume? The answer is, in my opinion, yes to both, and that's why we partner with topthepodium.com. Now, if you want to see an example of what a professional website and what a professional resume looks like, you gotta check out topthepodium.com. They did my website. The Sponsored Rider Club Podcast website is sponsoredriderclubpodcast.com. That was created by Jeff Vanistall of topthepodium.com. I think it's awesome. I get a lot of good feedback about it. And there's a number of other websites out there that Jeff has produced that are just phenomenal. So I think it's important in this world of social media where you have control of your content. That's what a website does. It gives you full control. We don't know what Facebook's going to do sometimes. We don't know what Instagram's going to do. We don't know what Twitter's going to do. So if we don't have that central location to direct people and house our content, there is some risk that we incur. So I strongly recommend getting a website, talking to topthepodium.com. And then the resume, again, is massive. And if you want to stand out, get it done professionally. And honestly, it is one of the best ways to step up your game and present yourself in the best way possible.
Hey guys, George Hamill here to talk about SolderWeld's new off-road repair kit. If you're a racer of any type or an off-road enthusiast like myself, you're going to want to take a close look at this product that bonds metal on the spot. SolderWeld has combined some of their most elite products into one small kit that fits perfectly under your seat or strapped to a roll cage and allows you to make some insane fixes anywhere you go. How many of us have been in a race or out on the trail and got a rock chip in a radiator or brake line? We have seen a top-tier desert race team at the 2019 Min 400 taken out by a simple rock to the radiator. If they had an off-road repair kit on board, they could have been back up and running in just minutes. The kit includes everything you need to work on dirty aluminum, stainless steel, copper, and many other metals. SolderWeld's cutting-edge technology allows you to make these fixes with extremely low heat and incredibly high tensile strength, leaving you a lasting fix every time. Don't be that guy broke down on the side of the trail. Get your off-road repair kit today, and your friends will thank you.
All right, well, welcome back, everybody. We're now in Heat 2. That's where we talk about the sponsorship tactics and strategies. And honestly, we've already talked about quite a bit of stuff in kind of the intro background at the catch-up session there. But, let's kind of get into some of the nitty-gritty details here. I wanted to start with collaboration. So I mentioned earlier, we've already started talking about some of this, but let's just dive into it deeper head on. We already talked a lot about Jim Beaver and the Down and Dirty show, and there's some collaboration going on there. Quite a bit, right? We got into that weekly shows. It's built off of a long relationship. But how does that relationship there, let's be specific with that show, how does that relationship, that collaboration help your own personal brand and then also your partner brands, which we mentioned earlier?
Well, being able to be on Jim's show and being able to talk about what I'm doing, what I'm, getting myself into, what adventures I'm going on, it helps a lot because certain brands are like, hey, she'll be able to talk about this weekly. She'll be able to get another reach out there for the iTunes listeners. Hey, this Jim's show is one in the top 5 for the automotive. She's got X amount of people being able to listen every week. So it also just helps, and it creates a little bit more buzz, and it keeps you in the loop of what's happening, but also keeps you in everybody's ear too. So when you're still doing things and creating content and you're a focal figure for a weekly thing, that's where people are like, hey, I wonder what Tiffany's up to. I'm going to, listen to Jim's show because she's a part of it. And it works for Jim as well. Some listeners that Jim didn't have, but were followers of mine, are like, oh, she's on the show, I'm going to give it a listen. And then they become fans as well. So it kind of works all together into creating a nice harmony of you help me, I help you, but it works all together because when you be able to have those different outlets, it also expands your reach just a little bit more.
Definitely. And that is something that I want people listening to talk about with their sponsors or potential sponsors. Take advantage of these, the podcast world. Take advantage of, people are doing live shows now and bringing guests on. Take advantage of that stuff and take credit for it when you do. So, yeah, if you're a regular co-host, if you're frequently going on other people's shows for whatever type of show it is, take credit for that. So you can even ask the people, hey, how many views do you get? How many downloads do you get? And you can build that in to your pitch. Hey, I'm going to talk about you on this show. I'm going to do it 4 times this year. Okay, maybe it's once this year. I don't know. You can still take credit for that because that's new exposure, that's new reach that you wouldn't otherwise get at just the track, or that you wouldn't otherwise get at just, some sort of event, right? It extends that reach.
It absolutely does. And then honestly, you're actually going to laugh at this, but I had to do a career day. So a friend of mine was like, hey, Tiffany, can you come speak at career day for a bunch of 4th graders?
Nice.
So okay, awesome. Let me go do that. Then I didn't realize what I got myself into because when I really sat down, I was like, Tiffany, what do you do? And so I sat there for a minute because whenever people are like, what do you do? I'm like, I do a bunch of things. Mm-hmm. So I really sat down and I really honed in on what it was. And I realized that I, as a career, am a part of broadcast media. So, which was kind of cool because I was like, oh, well, I'm on TV. I do live event and live stream, and I also do radio. And I was like, that encompasses, broadcast media. So I put that all together. And once you put all that together, like you were saying, it helps you be able to promote yourself because, one, you know what you do. Two, you know how you could help yourself and also benefit other companies. So once you really figure out kind of what your, not necessarily job title is, but what you're really focused on, then you can kind of really go a little bit deeper and be like, okay, I want to do this. I want to do that. This is what I want to do. So I think it's kind of cool, especially when you are, a driver, an athlete, a rider or something. It's like, well, what do you want to specialize in? What do you really want to do? Do you want to be just an athlete? Do you want to be an athlete and a YouTuber? Do you want to, you're able to do so many different things. You don't just have to do one thing.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this and kind of laughing like, ha, that sounds silly, that's super easy, try it. Like, try to sit down and write whatever it is that you do. I mean, even if you have, a traditional day job. So this is really funny. My wife and I were just talking about this the other day, and she's like, okay, so I know what you do, but what is it that you do? And she's like, I'm trying to describe it to one of my friends right now what your job is. She's like, are you a plant manager? And I was like, well, because I work at a proving grounds in Michigan, and so she's like, are you a plant manager? I was like, well, it's not a plant. Like, we don't make stuff. We test and like design and develop. And she's like, so what are you? I was like, I'm an operations manager. She's like, what's an operations manager do? I was like, well, it's simple. I manage operations? Does that count? I don't know. I was like, I can tell you everything that I do, but what is it that I do? And then it's like, whenever you go through those moments, you have this like internal panic attack. You're like, who am I as a person? And then I don't know. It's crazy. Or when people ask about my show, I've been doing this show now for 2.5 years or something, and they're like, oh, so what's your podcast about? You podcast? I was like, yeah. I talk about motorsports marketing and sponsorship. They're like, oh, what's that? Like, oh, it's simple. It's simple. It's like influencer marketing. They're like, oh, what's that? You're like, well, it's, people like race and do stuff and they give them product and like money. Oh, okay. I gotta go do something. You know what I mean? Like, it's so funny trying to explain this stuff. But yeah. Either way, my point is, I really encourage people to sit down and like write out whatever the heck it is that they think that they do, because it does help you get that branding piece down. When someone asks you, what do you do? Oh, I'm in broadcast media. Oh, okay. What does that mean? Then you can kind of explain, oh, here's my 32-second pitch about who I am, what I do, and what my brand represents. And then, when you run into the Todd Robinsons of the world, or you run into, whoever else, then you give them that pitch right off the bat, and they're like, oh, okay, well, that's exactly what I need to market my product. And that's how a lot of these things happen.
You're exactly right. And going back to what you said, it's like, if you don't have a normal like day-to-day job that tells you exactly what you do, or you're an athlete trying to make it and stuff, and they're like, so what do you do? You're like, I'm an athlete. Well, what do you do? I drive race cars. Well, what else do what else do you do? Well, I do this. And so you're right. Just figure out what you do and kind of go from there.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Gary Vaynerchuk, and I talk about him on the show quite a bit, but, he's basically makes a big deal out of how parents, years ago, not even that long ago, but a lot of parents would be like, get off those video games, or like, quit messing around with that video camera. And like those kids grew up to be like, professional EA Sports. I don't even know how this stuff works, but there's like esports things now that people make money on, and professional YouTubers, and like some people play video games and on Twitch, and that's how they fund their whole life. And this Gary Vaynerchuk's like, see, mom and dad, like, see, you didn't even know, like they figured it out. So you look at that now and you're like, yeah, okay, all these racers, like, they've built a career around this stuff, and it's hard to understand even how it works, but it does, and it's pretty cool when it does.
Well, and social media has allowed people to be able to take control of their own brand, Like back in the day, I mean, I'm not nowhere near on the level of some obviously celebrities and stuff like that. But back in the day, people had publicists and these things to help publicize them and help brand them and market them and doing all these things. And then sometimes the artist or whoever it would be would get lost in what the branding was or their image. And, you know, there's a lot of artists and people out there now and celebrities who love the fact that social media allows them to be in control of their own brand. It allows them to be able to put themselves out there how they want to be perceived and not get lost in somebody else's idea of who they think they are.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's very good. That's very good. Yeah, so that's exactly what I want to kind of build on there is how do the brands that you have, how are the brands that you support, how are they formed, how are they maintained, how the collaborations help with that. So I think we captured all that. But honestly, too, we started talking about partnerships a little bit earlier, and I want to dive a little bit deeper into that. You know, specifically, you've branched out in a couple of things. You know, you've branched out the Jeep community. I would like to know a little bit more about ARA, because that's something I don't know much about, and I don't know if we've really talked about it in the show very often. So how did you kind of take existing partnerships and start building it out into those new segments, you know, the Jeep community ARA?
Well, so what happened with the AMSOIL stuff is I worked with AMSOIL in Torque. I had met Kevin Kastner, who is the marketing guy over there, and Kevin and I were just chatting. And then later on, I reached out to AMSOIL to say, hey, I'm doing this trail to SEMA. Would you guys like to be any part of the sponsorship, this and that? And then they sponsored me for a trail to SEMA. And then obviously that went really, really well. And then come in January with King of the Hammers and Dave Cole, AMSOIL was a big sponsor out there, and they wanted to do a segment called AMSOIL After Dark. Well, I did some stuff for King of the Hammers in 2018 where they kind of remembered me a little bit, and Kevin remembered me as well from some of the stuff that I did. They're like, hey, let's bring Tiffany out. So they had me do between a 45-minute and an hour-long full live stream. I was in control of the whole thing. Guests came in and out, but it was just me, live stream, no commercials, no nothing, just kind of talk. And they were really happy about it. It was well perceived in-house. People liked it. It gave an insight to a lot of different, you know, drivers and who they really were as a person comparative to a driver. Like we could look up stats, numbers, times, trophies, and all of that stuff. But I wanted to know what Shannon Campbell liked to eat, if it was tacos or pizza. You know, it was different things like that, you know, who their favorite superhero was, and just stuff like that that made them a human and not just a driver or a rider. And then once that happened really well, I did some other stuff, and I've just been on their radar. And Jason Smith from USAC and Jeremy Meyer from USAC, and they were like, hey, you know, ARA, they needed somebody new to come in for a pit reporter. And since AMSOIL is a sponsor of that, it stayed internally. And since I've done such a great job representing AMSOIL on other avenues, they were like, we love Tiffany. She's already part of it. We know what she can do. And they just called me and offered me and said, hey, what are you doing? Are you available for this? And it worked out because I was let go from another company in race series where this opened it up. And it also goes to show you when one door closes, it's just leaving an opportunity for another one to open. It, you know, doesn't necessarily happen that quickly all the time, but you just have to be prepared for that in our type of business. And so my whole thing about the entire scenario about working with AMSOIL and how it come over here is when you are in this type of business, or any business actually, because you could broaden it to any type of scenario, any job, career, is you are only as good as the last thing that you did. So if you are only as good as your last radio show, that's it. So every time you're doing something, make sure it's the best, because you never know if it's going to be the last, to be honest. Like, you're only as good as your last race. You're only as good as that last stage. You're only as good as your last interview. And once you start putting that in, you're going to realize that, hey, this could be the last time, because just because things are rolling really great right now doesn't mean that they're going to be going that way forever. And if I continue to stay on top and continue to keep pushing, I'm in control of, you know, how that is perceived, but I'm never going to be in control of how long that actually is, because somebody could be like, Tiffany, we don't want to go that way, but that means that sponsor may be done. But if I'm still on top of my game and pushing myself and controlling, that just gives me opportunity for a different one to come in. Mm-hmm. So, it's never ending. It's always going. And you are control, not of the time, but you are in control of how it plays out. Because then once you are into how it plays out, you can always have that ball in your court.
No, that's really good. And actually, like I always take notes during all these shows too, but I started writing down a lot of things you were saying there, and then I got stressed because I was like, man, like, is this show gonna be the best one? Like, I'm only as good as this show. Like, this show better be good. All those thoughts went through my head really quickly, but it also made me think of a pretty cool story. It's related to AMSOIL. So AMSOIL was the title sponsor of this show for about a year, which was phenomenal. Kevin Castor was also on this show, episode 140. Lindsay Primo was on as well, who's on Kevin's team. That was at Heydays in September. I don't remember what episode number that was. Maybe like 110 or 120 or something. But either way, great relationship there. And, when I was talking to Kevin and Nick Lansing over there at AMSOIL about, extending the title sponsor program, they were like, yeah, we don't even know, like, we might be changing some things up, so like stay tuned. They're like, we were really interested, but I mean, marketing budgets are shifting constantly. Everybody who's who's listened to the show and has had at least one sponsor knows that at any point things can change, right? I was just very fortunate in this case where, Joey D was just on the show recently. And I've had a good relationship with Joey D, and we started talking about four-wheel parts and working together there. And they're like, yeah, we'd love to come on board and be involved. And it was like this crazy thing where I was talking to AMSOIL, and they're like, yeah, we think that we want to be a part of the show still, but just not in the same way. We'd rather leave that title sponsorship slot open for somebody else. And I was like, really? Because like I literally have someone that can slot in today. And it was pretty crazy how that all worked out. And, like Kevin and Nick over at AMSOIL were like, this is fantastic. They were super excited because, they knew they wouldn't be able to give the show the same amount of support that they have in the past, but they also didn't want to see the show struggle or slip or anything like that. And they still want to be a part of it. So they were like, man, it felt so good to have like supportive people like Kevin and Nick over at AMSOIL, and then also Joey D for Four Wheel Parts, and lots of other people behind the scenes that make it all happen. But it feels good to know like you can make some changes and tweaks and adjustments and relationships, and in the end it's gonna work out. Like you said, one door, in this case it didn't close, but like one door started shutting a little bit and the other one opened up, and we're all still here. I don't really know how to say two doors are still kind of open at the same time. I can't make that fully work, but either way, everything turned out fantastic.
You know how you could say it? The saloon doors were swinging.
Oh, there you go.
That's two doors technically, and they're swinging opening at the same time.
I kind of like that. That's interesting. Did you just come up with that, or is that a thing?
No, I literally just came up with that.
This might have to be a new T-Stone rule to live by. I don't know how you can work it in, but that could be a new T-Stone rule. Do you still do that? The T-Stone rules to live by?
I do. It's sometimes I get so busy, and the thing is, it's like with those rules, it's like I should write them down more often because I think of all of them, and then when it comes to posting something, I'm like, man, I forgot. And it's like with those things, you can't like force it. It just, when you try to force something like a quote, a comment, or anything, it's like it doesn't seem organic or like myself, and I'm like, So I do. That's what I need to do. I need to get better at when I think of these things, just to put them in my notes and then go back to them later on.
You know what? And this applies to anybody that's listening to. I mean, I have become borderline obsessed with OneNote. I use it I have two separate OneNotes I maintain, one for like my professional work and then the other one for my podcast and just general stuff. But I mean, if I think of anything, I pull out my phone or my tablet, or I've got a lot of devices. I got two phones, I got tablet, two computers. I pull out something, they're all linked type in my note, and I'm good to go. And it has been crazy helpful. And then I've also started using something. It's been over a year now. It's called Microsoft To Do. It's a to-do list app, and it it syncs across all your devices. And if, like, for example, when you first signed up for this time slot, right away I put a note in, like, outline for T Stone, right? I put that in my to-do list. And it's in there. I can put reminders. I can put due dates. I can put recurring meetings on there. Like, it has changed my life. So long story short, maybe T Stone just needs a OneNote.
Well, I kind of try to do that. I do it with my notes because I have it on. I have an Apple Watch, the iMac, or the MacBook, my note section, and so it does it that way. I just.
Yep.
Honestly, I think I just get lazy. I try, like, it's so horrible. January, February, March, April are the busiest months for me because I have Auto Show plus King of the Hammers, the Mint 400, UTV World Championships, Daytona 500, both weekends for the Clash race, and then Richmond plus auto shows, and then random stuff here. So I'm in Detroit going to the West Coast all the time.
Yeah.
And now I threw ARA in there, which my last race at the end of April was in Washington. So, like, I've been out, every trip I've made is mostly to the West Coast. So it's kind of weird. I feel like I just need to have an RV and just drive and fly out of airports wherever I want to go.
And, you said, too, that you drove to Moab. That's a 24-hour drive, isn't it? From maybe 26 from where you're at.
26 from where I'm at, and then I did Detroit to Johnson Valley for King of the Hammers, and that's 38.
Holy cow.
And I did that by myself.
Wow, that's a lot. So I talked to Lance Robinson over at SolderWeld. He's been on the show, plus SolderWeld has been a huge supporter of the show for, I think it's been over 2 years now. It's been a long time. And Lance invited me out to Easter Jeep Safari weekend. So that's out in Moab as well, and that was, obviously around the Easter time frame. And I was like, man, I would love to go. I was like, I don't know, because he wanted me to bring my Jeep out there, right? And I was like, I don't know if I can do that. That's like 4 days of driving. I mean, it sounds awesome, but I need to plan. Like, I got to plan for that, and I was not ready. But you did it. You were just like, whatevskis. We're driving.
Well, I know. So I had to be in Johnson Valley on Friday. I left Detroit on a Tuesday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And I kind of took my time because if you look at my Instagram or if you were following me during that time, I did Route 66. So I stopped at a few spots on Route 66 because on my way home from Trail to SEMA, I took Route 66 and wasn't able to see a bunch of different things. So this time on my way out there, I tried, just to do some sightseeing because it was like, if I'm out here, I might as well take the time. I had just worked 22 days in a row. And so I was like, even though I'm driving and that still takes some time, I'm just going to stop, look at stuff, check out old, cool, Route 66 things. And I did it. But then on the way home, I drove from Johnson Valley to Flagstaff, which is about 6.5 hours because I love Sedona. So I checked out that area. I thought I had to go to the Daytona 500. I thought I was flying out Thursday. So I started driving from Flagstaff on Monday, and I was like, oh, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, fly out Thursday. No, I was mistaken, and I drove 13.5 hours on that Monday, looked at that, and it was like, you're ready to check in for my flight. That was in a few days, and I was leaving Wednesday. So I had to drive 16.5 hours
Oh, no.
on Tuesday. Didn't get home till 2:30 in the morning, and the last 4 or 5 hours, so pretty much from like Indianapolis to Detroit area, was snowing. And the entire trip on Tuesday was anywhere between 15 miles per hour and 28 miles per hour wind. And if anybody has a lifted Jeep with a hardtop, they know that thing is a sail, and it was the worst drive of my life. It for 16.5 hours, just pinned because it was blowing wind back and forth.
Yeah, There's Pritchett Canyon's got nothing on, just a trip down I-94 with the wind blowing and ice.
Exactly. And so it's just like, yeah, it was pretty rough.
Good deal. Well, there's been a lot that you've experienced, especially recently, a lot going on, but do you have any, lessons learned to share with our guests, based off past successes or failures?
Pretty much, if you never give up, then you're never going to be a failure. If you always keep pushing, you're always succeeding, because, the definition of success is not having everything. To me, this is what the definition of success is. It's not having everything. It's not accomplishing all your goals. It's not having the best of the best. It's not proving people wrong when, they said that you couldn't do it. Success to me is failing, getting back up, and continuing. Because you're never successful if you don't experience failure. Because if you don't experience failure, how are you ever to really know what success is or success to you? So each person is going to have their own struggles of what failure is and when they feel like they've failed. But if you never give up and you just say, all right, well, that didn't work, I'm going to keep on going, that's what success is. It's never really giving up. And you can't experience it. Like I said, you'll never know what success is if you don't have failure.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Doesn't feel good when it happens, but I completely agree. Well, one thing that we have not done, you and I on the show before, is the lightning round. So I've got 3 quick questions to go through here. The first one is usually the doozy. The other ones are like way too easy.
Wait, are these not in the outline?
They're in there. They're in there. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I actually, so on the last show, I just did one with Marco Hernandez of Overland X. And, if anybody's into overlanding and Jeeps, like you've probably heard of Marco, well, either way, I built in 2 extra questions for him. But I'm not going to tell everybody what that is yet because I want you to go back and listen to that episode. Listen to the whole thing because it's a blast. But, like, I threw in 2 extra ones. He was like, what? Some people really pay attention to my outlines. And some people are just like, what outline? So sometimes I can throw people off with that, but no. So first question here: if you could sponsor anyone in the world, who would you choose and why?
Man, that is, I don't know. I know that one was in there. I know it was in there, and I looked at it on
everybody
the
does.
And I was like, I know who I would sponsor, man. Honestly, I think I'd sponsor probably like an up and comer. I don't know. There's no specific person yet, but there's a lot of, I had a chance to, interview a lot of the youth from the UTV World Championship out in Laughlin. And I'm not kidding you, like 50 youth, maybe even more in one class I interviewed. And some of them are just spot on and they have it. And they have everything, but probably one of them, just because they're not jaded yet. They still go out, they race with their friends, they have a good time, regardless who wins, and they come back. And then I saw them out in like Turbo S's, like just rocking with their friends and driving on there. I don't know. I know that was on there. You already caught me up. I have answers for everything else, but I'm just probably a youth, honestly. Like, there's some cool up-and-comers that are out there, and I think I would do, like, somebody who had all the potential but never really got the chance to show, There's some people out there who are, like, of course, that are named because of their parents or whatnot, and they have that last name. I just go out because you can teach people to have, to do this, to do that, but you can't teach somebody to have heart. They either have heart or they don't.
No, that's a good one. A couple people I thought of who've both been on the show before, Caden Danbury and Casey Sims. I guess they're both growing up pretty quickly, but I remember the first time I talked to Caden on the show, his mom was on with him, and he was 9 or 10 at the time. I can't remember exactly how old he was then, but he was so mature, and he was telling me about how he did a pitch to a sponsor, and I was like, man, like if I was 9, I don't know, I couldn't do that. And it makes you just really appreciate the potential and the talent and like where our industry is going to be at in the future. Like a lot of these kids now, all the stuff that, there's a certain generation that's still learning social media and still learning the technology and how to do this stuff. Then the next generation is growing up just already tuned in. So I'm very curious of how, the whole sponsorship scene and the whole racing scene is going to look like in the next 15, 20 years.
Exactly. And that's the crazy thing. I mean, we're probably around the same age.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't go to high school with social media, and that just aged me very, very much. Because if you know when social media was prevalent and I graduated before that, I mean, I had people that had to call my house and ask my dad if I was available to talk on the phone. So that tells you how old I am right there. Yeah. But then you have people that, like my 6-year-old niece, who could pretty much do so much already, because not on social media, but I'm just talking about with electronics, because of those things. And then you even have, I'm not kidding you, like 9, 10-year-olds, and granted their parents are helping them, but 9, 10-year-olds that are reviewing toys and kid products and making millions off of it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, wow, it's insane. But you're absolutely right. It's just the generation that we live in. Everything's available for it, and you kind of just go with the times.
So now I'm curious, so I graduated high school in 2005. How close were you to that?
Oh. I'm close to it.
2003.
I can't even tell you.
2002.
Yes, 2003.
Oh, okay.
2003.
Okay. Yeah, so if you'd have been in Belleville High School where all the cool kids were at, that's where I was at, then we would have been in the same school for a little while there.
I just turned, my birthday was May 2nd. I just had my birthday. So
oh, nice.
I'm getting used to the idea of the 1 year older, but you wouldn't really know. Honestly, I don't look that way. I don't feel that age, honestly. Maybe it's because I don't have kids, so I'm not stressed out about everything. But, I'm just fortunate to be able to still look, fairly young, look in my late 20s, but have the experience, the age, the time to really know the professional side and how to carry that out. And honestly, I am thankful I didn't have to grow up in high school social media, because kids are cruel these days. And what if you could never get away from that?
Oh, I'll tell you what, I am a little nervous for that, because, I've got kids. I got 2 kids now, and they're great. But I'll tell you what, they just add an extra element of challenge to things. And you think about all the things that, like, you want to protect them, but how do you protect kids from like the cruelness of what social media can bring? Because I use social media in a way that I think is very positive for me. Like, I use it for just, interacting with specific friends, family, and people within the motorsports community. Like, that's where social media comes in at. In the motorsports community, the people at least that I see, like, they treat me well, I treat them well. Like, it's a comfortable environment to be a part of. But I steer clear of all of that and other negativity that's out there. And when you're a middle schooler or high school kid, I don't know how you get away from that on social media. I don't know how to protect like my kids from that sort of stuff. So it'll be interesting.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, when we had social media, there was America Online with chat rooms, but then everybody had fake things, and all you had to do is just have your mom say she needed the landline, and then you had to get off the computer, and that was it. It's not like, oh, ping this, ping that, ping, 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 and then you have, so many notifications and people just being so rude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, but I'm sure we'll figure it out. Gosh, I remember AOL Instant Messenger. There's probably a lot of people listening like, what is that? But, oh, man, like, and my wife and I actually, we knew each other and we started dating in high school. So I remember getting on there and be like, like, oh, Sama is on. Her thing was Sama05 was her little instant messenger name. I'd be like, messaging her. Oh, it's pretty funny. And that's just gone. Like, you can we were talking about this, I think it was in the pre-interview, but about how, I don't even know what platform I'm using to message people anymore. Like I'll remember, oh, I know I talked to such and such, but was that Twitter? Was that Facebook? Was that one of my 4 Instagram accounts? Was it like through a Facebook page messenger? Was it for my personal messenger? Was it from my Apple phone, or was it for my Android phone, or was it through my tablet? I don't know. Who knows? Whew. Okay, was that the first question?
Exactly how it is.
Oh my gosh, that was supposed to be the lightning round. This lightning's supposed to be fast. Okay, so next question here. If you could use only one social media platform, which would you choose and why?
Probably Instagram, just for the simple fact that you can be able to get super creative with it if need be. Mm-hmm. I like Instagram stories, the TV. It allows you to be able to, showcase a little more about yourself. And honestly, I just still feel like Facebook is, not that it's old and dated or anything like that, but it doesn't allow you to be as creative as you want to be, especially with like IG stories and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think every single person has said that, other than the people who are YouTube stars that have been on the show.
Oh, yeah.
But, hey, you can't blame them. I say Instagram too, but it's also the one that I have the most engagement on. So, hey, go Instagram. All right, who has been your biggest supporter?
Probably my mom. My mom always tells me how she's proud of me, and it's so cliche. It's so cliche now that I'm thinking about it. But it really is. She's been there since day one. She tells me how I am. I realize the older that I get how I'm like her. And a lot of the who I am and my stamina, I guess, and my resilience, it comes from her. And so it makes me excited to know that she's super proud of me for everything that I have done, because I know there's some people out there who don't have the support of their family, and that's got to be difficult at times.
Yeah, definitely. I've always been very fortunate to have a very supportive family. My wife did too, so I don't have, I know of stories and examples of people, but like I could never truly relate. So I could only imagine that that's got to make things pretty difficult. So, speaking of difficult, it's hard sometimes to end these shows, but guess what? When we're there. That was a good transition. You see, I botched the transition earlier. I like that one, though.
That was a good transition.
That was a good transition. But it is time to wrap up. So I just want to kind of get this little tidbit from you. What's one thing we need to take away from the show if we forget everything else?
I don't know. Pretty much just never stop, never give up, and just keep on going. Always find your audience, because just because you think nobody wants to listen to you, they will. You just have to find your audience.
Yeah, that's good. Good stuff. What's the best way to connect with you?
Pretty much at Tiffany Stone on all the platforms. IG is where I spend most of the time. So at Tiffany Stone, and then my website's just www.tiffany-stone.com. So you can be able to hit me up there, and then just post Instagram, so say hello.
Sounds good. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat again. Third time is the charm. They were all good, but I just felt like I needed to say that. I'm going to leave you with this. Have fun and ride safe.
Perfect.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by 4-Wheel Parts. Be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any of our upcoming shows. Follow us on social media as well. That's where we share a lot of information and upcoming guests for the show. Pay specific attention to our Facebook page. That's where we do our live shows 2 each month. To get some insider access to upcoming guests, you can also check out the Sponsored Rider Club on Facebook. That also offers a forum for best practices sharing, so you can ask questions and get answers from the motorsports community. A special thanks goes out to our sponsors, 4-Wheel Parts, AMSOIL, SolderWeld, Bold Racing, TopThePodium.com, and Crash Addict Industries. I also want to shout out some of our other partners, GSP XTV, MBRP, HMK USA, Studboy Traction, Diode Dynamics, and High Octane Coffee. I look forward to serving you again next week. Until then, have fun and ride safe.